Just after midnight this morning, our 911 communication center received a call from a young man who stated he had just killed his parents.
You need to pray. You need to pray? Yes, ma'am.
After he committed this heinous, terrible crime, he called her first.
They called him the perfect son. At just 14 years old, Trevor Lee was a kid people looked up to. A football player, a good student, the type of boy who made teachers proud and friends laugh. His parents, David Lee and Brandy Smith, were the kind of couple people admired, supportive, funny, the ones who treated their son's friends like family. But in the span of a single night, everything shattered. Hours after sitting in a theater with his mom and dad, Trevor picked up a gun, walked into their bedroom while they slept, and pulled the trigger. Then, instead of running, he walked to a church, called 911, and asked the dispatcher to pray with him. This is the story of how a perfect day turned into a nightmare, the haunting details investigators uncovered, and the community still trying to make sense of it all. It was just after midnight when dispatchers in Clay County answered a call that didn't sound like an emergency at all. On the other end was Trevor Lee. His voice wasn't panicked. It wasn't trembling. It was calm, almost polite. He told the dispatcher he was standing in front of Crosspoint Church, that he had thrown away his backpack, emptied his pockets, and was waiting for deputies.
911, how can I help you? Hello, I'm by the road. I threw my backpack away from me. I'm stripped. I'm waiting for the police. What do you mean you're stripped? I have nothing in my pocket. I emptied my pockets and everything. There's nothing in my pockets. And I'm not on the sidewalk. I'm in the middle part. You're going to be in the parking lot? No, in the middle part. In the middle part of what? Of the church? I'm gonna pray first. I need to pray. You need to pray? Yes, ma'am. Okay. Before you start praying, tell me exactly where you're at. If you're driving towards the church, I'm right out in front of the church. There's a big cross.
At first, the dispatcher wasn't sure what to make of it. Was this a prank? A setup? Clay County had dealt with swatting incidents before, and the thought crossed her mind. But then Trevor admitted something that changed everything. He had just killed his parents. The dispatcher tried to keep him talking, unsure if it was real. Trevor, instead of begging for help, said something chilling. "I need to pray first." The operator's tone shifted immediately. "Go ahead," she told him softly. "I'll pray with you." It was a surreal moment. On one end, a dispatcher trying to keep him calm. On the other, a 14-year-old boy confessing to a crime so unthinkable, it didn't seem real.
Do you pray?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, I'll listen to you. Well, I was going to ask if you could pray for me, ma'am. Right now? I'll definitely be praying for you, son. Okay, we've asked them not to point guns at you. Okay, they're going to be approaching you any minute.
Minutes later, deputies arrived at the church. Trevor was exactly where he said he would be, standing under the large cross out front, empty-handed, waiting. He didn't resist. He didn't fight. He went quietly into custody. When deputies entered the Lee home, they confirmed what Trevor had said. His parents were gone. To understand how shocking this was, you have to go back just a few hours earlier. On August 4th, everything seemed normal. Trevor wasn't grounded. He wasn't fighting with his parents in public. He wasn't sulking in his room. He was out with his mom and dad, David and Brandy, watching a movie and eating food and laughing. Friends say the Lees were the type of parents who made everyone feel welcome. They weren't strict or cruel. They were engaged, loving, and the kind of parents who went above and beyond for their kids. Trevor's best friend later told reporters, "They were probably one of the best families I knew. They treated me like a son." From the outside, it was a family anyone would envy. But behind closed doors, tension was brewing. Investigators later revealed that a domestic argument broke out that evening between Trevor and his parents. Sheriff Michelle Cook confirmed it wasn't a minor disagreement that fizzled out quickly. This was something bigger, an argument that left Trevor stewing for hours. Cook said this wasn't impulsive rage. It wasn't a flash of teenage temper. He had time to think, time to cool down, time to change his mind, but he didn't. Instead, Trevor made a choice. After midnight, when the house was still, he went to where his mother's firearm was kept. It wasn't locked away, and Trevor knew exactly where to find it. He loaded the weapon, walked into his parents' bedroom, and opened fire while they slept. There were no signs of struggle, no overturned furniture, no desperate attempt to escape, just silence, broken by gunfire. Within seconds, David and Brandy were gone. Before going deeper into what happened next, it's important to pause and honor the victims. David Lee, 44, was described as a devoted father. He loved football, supported Trevor every step of the way, from practice rides to cheering on the sidelines. Friends say he was the type of dad who made sure every kid on the team felt included. Brandy Smith, 45, was warm, funny, and hardworking. She treated Trevor's friends like her own kids, always opening her home and making people feel welcome. Neighbors described her as the mom everyone wished they had. Together, David and Brandy built a life that looked happy and full. Their friends and family now want them remembered, not for the way their lives ended, but for how they lived, with love, generosity, and kindness. After the shooting, Trevor didn't run. He didn't try to hide the evidence. He didn't even attempt to cover his tracks. Instead, he left the weapon inside the home, stepped outside, and started walking. From the Lee home to Crosspoint Church is about 1.5 miles, 15 minutes alone in the dark. No phone in his hands, no one beside him. For many, those minutes would have been filled with fear or regret. But from the way Trevor sounded on the 911 call, there was no panic, no nervous breakdown. Instead, he said, "I need to pray." By the time deputies spotted him, he was standing quietly near the cross, waiting for whatever came next. Back inside the house, detectives were struck by how still everything was. There was no broken glass, no overturned furniture, no mess, just a heavy smell of gunfire and 2 parents lying in their bed. The weapon was identified as Brandy's firearm. In Florida, there's no law requiring parents to secure their guns away from children, though many argue there should be. The fact that Trevor has such easy access to the weapon reignited debates across the community. Investigators also uncovered that deputies had been called to the Lee home 5 times since 2021. Some calls involved disturbances, another referenced threats of self-harm, and one was listed vaguely as a follow-up investigation. None of those calls predicted this, at least not in the eyes of neighbors, who insisted the Lees were good, loving parents. Brandy's cousin later said simply, "He had good parents, nobody can understand this." While rumors spread about other phone calls, one call was confirmed. The one Trevor made to his best friend, Curry, just before the murders. Late that night, Trevor called to say goodnight. He told Curry he loved him. At that time, he didn't raise alarms. They were close. Trevor often told him he was like a brother. Hours later, when Curry learned what happened, he realized that call was a goodbye. "I just didn't think it was real," he told reporters. "They treated me like family." For investigators, this wasn't just emotional testimony. It was a timestamp, a reminder that Trevor sounded calm, even affectionate, minutes before carrying out the killings. When deputies arrived at Crosspoint Church, they saw Trevor standing outside under the cross. They didn't rush in, they didn't know if he was still armed. But when backup arrived, they approached carefully. Trevor didn't resist, he didn't speak much. He simply let them place him in handcuffs. Back at the station, detectives said he was cooperative. He answered questions. He explained his thought process, and never once tried to deny what he had done. Sheriff Cook later said she believed this was his only way out. Within days, the case went before a grand jury. Trevor was indicted in 2 counts of first-degree murder. At just 14 years old, he now faces the possibility of being tried as an adult. Here's why that matters. If convicted as a juvenile, he would be released at the age of 19. But if tried as an adult, he could face life behind bars. Legal experts say prosecutors are almost certain to pursue the harsher path, given the brutality of the crime. Florida has a history of trying minors as adults in high-profile cases. At his arraignment on August 19th, Trevor pleaded not guilty. He sat in court quietly, showing little emotion, mirroring the night of his arrest. The murders didn't just devastate the Lee family, they sent shockwaves through Middleburg. Friends lit candles and held vigils. Football teams broke down as they spoke about David and Brandy, who treated them like their own kids. Neighbors stood outside, staring at the police tape wrapped around a home they once thought of as happy and stable. For many, the hardest part wasn't just the violence, it was the fact that no one saw it coming. How could a boy described as kind, polite, and perfect walk into his parents' room and do this? Despite hours of questioning and mountains of evidence, the biggest question remains: why? Was it teenage impulsivity that spiraled out of control? Was it an untreated mental health issue? Or was it a cold, calculated choice by a boy no one thought capable of it? And what exactly was the argument about that night? Investigators haven't revealed the details. Without them, the motive feels like a missing puzzle piece. For now, all the public knows is that Trevor told investigators he felt this was his only way out. 2 lives ended in the stillness of a Florida night. A son, once seen as perfect, now sits behind bars, accused of killing the very people who raised him. And a community left shattered, is still searching for answers that may never come. David Lee, Brandy Smith, deserve to be remembered not just as victims, but as loving parents, neighbors, and friends who gave so much to their community. Their kindness, generosity, and devotion live on in the memories of everyone who knew them. As Trevor's trial approaches, the debate rages on. Should a 14-year-old spend life in prison? Or was this the tragic result of a moment no one could have predicted? One thing is certain, this is a case that will haunt Middleburg for years to come. A reminder that even the most perfect-looking lives can hide fractures deep enough to destroy everything. Remember to like and subscribe. And let's discuss in the comments, what do you think of this case?